Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new, thanks for checking me out and hope you enjoy yourself here. I'm John Wetz, and on this channel I talk about spirituality, personal growth, mental health, and I'm sure there's going to be other things that come up at some point. Things like stuff about the moon, oracle decks, tarot decks, all that kind of fun esoteric stuff as well. So join me if you're into this kind of stuff. Today, I'm going to get into a little bit more of the spiritual side of stuff. Previously, I've done videos more on like mental health and personal growth stuff. But today, we're going to talk about spirit guides and ways that they communicate with us. I'm going to give 7 different ways that they communicate with us. By no means are these the only ways that spirit guides will try to communicate with us. But these are ways that I'm at least aware of or familiar with and have experience with myself. I don't want to give any information that isn't really relevant to it. So that's why I'm only talking about things that I'm familiar with. So the first thing is synchronicities. Synchronicities are specific things, words, situations, topics, or people that just keep reoccurring in your life or are recurring in a way that is relevant to other parts of your life that seem like they are completely unrelated, but somehow seem to be seeping into other parts of your life. This can happen for a few different reasons. One, it can be just to get your attention, which this is kind of what was happening for me when I was first starting my spiritual journey. Like when I was first getting into this stuff, I would just hear the same word. I can't remember what word it was, but it was just a very specific thing, something that you don't hear as often in traditional conversation. I would hear it on the radio, would hear it at work, would hear it through friends, see it on the internet. It was constantly bombarding me. And it was just more than seemed... It was more frequent than had been the rest of the time that I'd been alive. So it was just it was a little bit synchronistic and made me think this is a little too coincidental to be a coincidence. And this kept happening through different things. It wasn't just a word. It was, different situations that I found myself in, topics, different people coming up, whether it was a celebrity or a friend or just through different sources that weren't connected, but yet somehow gave me similar information. This will also happen sometimes to let you know if you're on the right path to something or on the wrong path. There's a wide variety of reasons why synchronicities will happen. You kind of have to use your own intuition and your gut feelings to kind of discern what it's meant for you. But if you're starting to notice things happening that seem coincidental, but starting to question if it's really a coincidence, this is probably the universe or your spirit guides, whichever way you want to look at it. I kind of interchange the two sometimes because honestly, I don't want to say it's all the same to me, but it kind of is in a sense. Whatever way you want to believe in it, that it's going to work for you too. If you're starting to kind of notice these things, you're probably trying to subconsciously wake up to a whole different side of the world and reality than what maybe you were led to believe. One good example I have of synchronicity happening, I was talking to a friend about synchronicity and how it kind of works and just how different things will pop up in your life to kind of get your attention. And within about a day or two of having this conversation with him about it, he kind of got to experience it firsthand. Of all things, it happened to deal with Ricketts disease. The way that it kind of happened was we were watching TV. It was like a game show or something, and Ricketts disease came up in the show. It's a rare thing, but yet specific enough that you're going to remember hearing it. Well, about 30 minutes later, we ended up playing a trivia game. And in this trivia game, Ricketts disease came up again. A couple days later, when he was at work, it came up in a conversation for him as well. And he was just kind of like, how is this happening? It's coming from different sources. It's happening seemingly randomly, but the last time he had a conversation or heard about Ricketts disease was a long time ago. And for me, it was actually the first time I'd ever heard of it. But yet, there it is, like 3-4 times in like a 2-day period. That's kind of what I mean by synchronicity. It will happen so spontaneously, so frequently, all of a sudden, just to kind of get your attention. And he even saw it and was just kind of like, that is a little weird, like, wouldn't have expected that. The second thing is numbers. Spirit guides love to communicate through numbers. This has actually been probably one of the most prominent ways that they've communicated with me over the years. This will happen through either repetitive numbers or sequential numbers. Repetitive numbers will be things like 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Sometimes it'll be triple digits. Sometimes it'll be quadruple. Sometimes it won't just be the same number. Sometimes it'll be like 1919 or something like that. Or sequential numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 12, 13, stuff like that. When you start seeing these numbers, whether it's on license plates, telephone numbers, just various places, don't be afraid to look it up online. I realize you're going to get a lot of different information on these numbers, but trust that you will feel guided to the correct information that's meant for you from that number when you're seeing it. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have had this happen to me where I kept being bombarded with the number, from my odometer to the time on the clock to the radio or the time on the song to a license plate number, all within like the same 10-minute period. And I would go and look up the number, and it would have a message that was, they can be kind of general at times, but sometimes they can be specific as well. And it will just resonate with you, with the thoughts or recent events, and seem like it's actually meant for you. A good example I have of this, and this is a little far out there, I guess, I actually ended up turning letters into numbers at one point. I had been thinking about this a long time ago, like prior to this happening. I kept thinking, what are other ways that spirits might try to contact me through not just numbers, because it had been happening through numbers a lot. And I kept getting this feeling of, well, if it was letters, it would just be written out, spelled out. It's not that hard to use letters that way. But when this happened, I was going for a walk, and I kept noticing the letters MLS over and over and over and over and over. Like, saw them in that specific order like 10 times in about a 30-minute period. It was on license plates. I saw it on my phone when I opened my phone up while I was going for a walk. Saw it on like a paint truck. Saw it on a real estate sign. I just kept seeing it over and over and over in that specific order. So I was like, my experience tells me that's normally a message coming through trying to get to me. At the time, this is shortly back before COVID, or not back before COVID, it was during COVID. It was back in June. I was getting ready I felt called to go back to Orlando to my apartment. And instead of being hunkered down with my partner at the time and my mother, where, it was kind of safe and everything. And I felt, for whatever illogical reason, being out in Orlando was the thing to do at that point. It didn't make a lot of sense to me because COVID numbers were kind of on the rise. It was seeming kind of dangerous to do. I knew I was going to be by myself out there again. And it kind of went against all logic, but I couldn't escape this gut feeling of, I need to get out there again. And when I saw MLS over and over, I tried to turn it into numbers. Like, it finally dawned on me to do that. And I just went to, their corresponding number in the alphabet, which happens to be 13, 12, and 19. And when I started looking, I found 13, 12, and 19 as the two messages. Like I said, at the time, I was really debating if I should go back out to Orlando or not. I felt like I should, didn't really know why. When I saw 1312 and the message that it had with it, there were two parts that really stood out to me, and I'm going to read them here for you. I'm going to put it up on the screen as well. It says, your angels want you to forgo all of your inhibitions and become braver when it comes to new doors being opened for you. This is not something that happens every day, which is exactly why you cannot be ungrateful enough to not acknowledge it or embrace the opportunities. And then it goes on to say, this is the right time for you to leave your safe little nest and venture towards huge opportunities and crazy dreams. Like I just said, I had been thinking I need to get back out to Orlando, but I felt like I should logically stay in Texas with my partner and my mother because COVID's going crazy. It doesn't seem like a good time to be taking these crazy risks. But here's this message coming along that's kind of confirming my gut feeling of I need to get back out there. Don't know why, but I do. Spoiler alert, getting back out here opened up all kinds of doors and led to a lot of great opportunities, from making a lot of great friends to just being a lot happier and in a lot more positive mind frame. Like, it did wonders for me, and I definitely would have regretted it if I didn't do it. I wouldn't have known what I was missing necessarily, but man, did it actually come through. This is probably the most prominent experience I've had with numbers in my life giving me like a message that I really needed. And even there's a lot more to it where I can see it's still kind of coming through and giving me, I don't want to say advice, but I guess advice in a little bit of a way. So don't ignore these messages when they're coming through. You might feel crazy trying to live your life making decisions off of random numbers that pop into your life. But if you're feeling called to do it, there is a reason. Don't worry about what other people think. Believe me, I've had my share of criticism on this. But I don't regret doing it, and it has always led me correctly. So don't be afraid to follow it. The other number was 19, and it has to do with beginnings and ends. The relevance of this at the time for it was, and as you can tell, I'm kind of a nerd. You see my shirt. I'm into all kinds of fantasy things and whatnot. And at the time, I was real heavy into World of Warcraft. And I kept getting this feeling that I needed to either dial it way back or completely quit just to make room for other things in my life. It was taking up too much of my time. It was asking too much of me and just too demanding for the way that I was playing it anyway. And I had been having a lot of thoughts of it's time for me to kind of stop this. Well, when I read the message for 19, it's some old habits may need to become the part of your past. And it might be time to, set things aside to make room for the new, which kind of coincided with that thought. Again, normally when you get these kinds of messages, it's going to be very synchronistic with your thoughts in recent events or things that are happening to you. The third thing is coins. Now, this one I don't have as much experience with myself, but I am aware of it, which is why I'm bringing it up. If you feel like you are getting messages through coins being left, start researching it online. There's plenty of other YouTubers out there that will have videos on this, that will have messages for it, and be able to explain it better than I can. I'm simply bringing it into your awareness so that you can kind of get the message if that's what it's meant for you. I don't want to misspeak about it and give false information, so all I'm going to do is bring it up that coins are a way that spirit guides try to talk to us sometimes. It is not the way that they communicate with me, but it is a way they can try to communicate with you. The fourth way that spirit guides try to communicate with us is through media, like TV shows, art, even video games, and especially music. For me, music is a big one. This is probably the second biggest compared to the numbers for me. It's not uncommon for either an entire song to be meant for you to hear at a time. Like, pay attention to what songs are coming on when you're having certain moods. It normally can end up being a message from your guides, either to kind of comfort you, give you support, or help direct you when you're feeling lost on what way to go. A good example of this for me would be, it was probably 2 years ago or so. It was during a full moon time, which full moons are meant to be kind of a time of release or ending of cycles. And I grew up in a Christian household, and I had been having a lot of struggles, though, with that religion, because while there's a lot of beauty in it, a lot of people are very hateful in it as well. And very, if you don't get it this right way with, calling him Jesus and everything, you're going to go to hell. And that just doesn't really jive with me. It hasn't for a long time, at least not that idea of it. And I kept feeling like I wanted to let go of that belief. But growing up in a Christian household, you kind of have it drilled into you that if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to burn for eternity. And, admittedly, there was a bit of fear there of me kind of letting go of that attachment. But I was driving in the car one day, and I just felt like it was coming back into my awareness of, I kind of want to give this up, but at the same time, I'm terrified to do so. And at the time, my Spotify playlist wasn't loading. And so I ended up turning on the regular radio. The car had been left on a Christian station from when I was taking my mother somewhere recently. And it was such a synchronistic moment. It wasn't so much the song as it was a specific line in the song. As the radio came on, a song was playing from Casting Crowns called The Well. And the specific line was, "Leave it all behind, your dried up empty religion." And when this happened, I was simultaneously having the thought of, if it's okay for me to let this go, please give me some kind of sign. And as soon as I heard that line, I just honestly broke down in tears, because it was just so synchronistic, and at the right exact moment, it just hit me like a rock. It felt like permission to just kind of go my own way and start living my truth and my beliefs instead of just carrying on a belief system that was passed down to me from my parents that didn't really resonate with me anymore and didn't bring much value to my life. Now, I'm not saying that I'm against Christianity, but I do struggle to believe that there is this God out there that basically punishes you if you get his name wrong. That does not jive with me. I believe in a much more loving concept of a God. And so, dealing with that fear of trying to let it go, it was a little rough. But that exact moment with that song coming on, let me tell you, like it could not have hit at a better time. The fifth way is through spiritual content. Stuff like videos like this, blogs, or podcasts, things like that. When I first started getting into spirituality or being pulled to it, I shouldn't say that I got into it because I didn't go looking for it. It kind of found me. When I was going through like a really hard time and I was feeling like I was, looking back, it's probably what my spiritual awakening was going through at the time. Or it was me going through my spiritual awakening, I should say. And I kept finding videos from people like Aaron Dowdy and Victor Odo. Those were two of the main ones that it kept popping up. It wouldn't always be their most recent video. It would be a video from like 2 years prior. And it would always be in video on a topic that was very relevant to my very recent events or thoughts. So it wasn't something that I was searching for. It was a synchronicity that was happening. It was something that I hadn't typed into the internet, I hadn't talked about with anyone. It was just a thought that was going through my head that I continuously was like dwelling on. And then a video would pop up from one of them covering that exact topic that I had been thinking of only. So it wasn't like, my search engine had been seeing what I was typing and suggesting it to me on that. It was a true, almost random event of synchronicity bringing this information to me at the time that I needed it. And I fully believe from listening to other stories where information like that floats into people, if it's your time to start learning about something, you're going to get bombarded with information about it. Videos like this or whatever it is, if they're starting to come into your realm of consciousness, it may not mean that you're ready to kind of go down that spiritual path. It may just be planting seeds to bloom later for you to kind of come back to and be like, oh, that's what that was. I cannot tell you how many times that has happened for me also. And sometimes it takes a real long time for that seed to bloom. So don't think that it's going to happen within like a week. I've had things from years before that I came to realize was actually a seed being planted for me to later come back to and see. The sixth thing is animals. Animals can be very spiritual. If you've ever been around an animal, or if you're a people person, there's a lot of people that will tell you that animals can kind of sense things about people that people don't normally sense about other people. People will trust an animal's instincts on a person faster than they will a lot of a person's instincts on a person. And I think there's a reason for that. I think a lot of people think there's a reason for that. But if certain animals start popping up in your life, and it can be anything from a type of bird to honestly even an insect, it might be your spirit guides trying to get a message through to you. Similar to like the numbers or coins or whatever. Try to find information online from other spiritual people. While we might not have the translations of these messages appropriate, your guides are going to know what information you're needing, and they're going to direct you, whether or not we have the correct translations of these things or not, to information that you need that is relevant. So don't be afraid to kind of go looking for it online. And if it doesn't jive with you, that's fine. But a lot of times it will. Like for me, I ended up doing a meditation at one point to try to kind of figure out what my spirit animal was. For whatever reason, it was popping up all over the place. And I ended up finding out that mine, of all things, was a hummingbird. Was not at all within my realm of choices that I thought it was going to be. But when I started reading about it, it was like, this actually makes a lot of sense. Talks about being able to relocate more easily, which I've moved several times in my life. Talks about being very light-spirited and trying to be playful with life, and that is me. I've definitely been more rigid at times, but I've always felt more called to be playful with life and have a more kid-like demeanor towards things. Doesn't always come out that way, but that is the way that I like to see myself, or at least try to see myself and present myself to the world. So I don't have as much information on the animal thing, but if animals are your thing for like spiritual guidance, or you think they might be, don't be afraid to kind of look up more information on it. Like I said, other YouTubers, they have their specialties as well, and they might have more information for you and more personal experiences with animals being their guidance or form of guidance. And the seventh and last thing, and this one kind of goes with all the others because you will use it with all the others, is your own intuition. Eventually you'll get to a point in your spiritual development where the external things like the synchronicities, the numbers, and things like that won't be the only way that your guides communicate with you. Sometimes you will get what is referred to by a lot of people as like a download, which will just be a burst of information into your mind, where it sounds kind of crazy, I know, but you will just start to know things. Like, you'll get information that seems like, how am I getting this? But you will then find that it is relevant to something that you're either about to deal with or something that you had dealt with, and you just got like a fresh perspective of it out of the blue. Do not be afraid to listen to this. Use your own discernment with it and learn to tell the difference between your intuition and your anxiety, because they can feel very similar. But your own intuition will end up being something that your guides use a lot to communicate with you and push you towards the things that are going to lead to a better life for yourself, or away from things that may cause issues for you in the future. Like, I tend to think of the intuition part being a little bit more of a advanced method. I don't know if I'm right on that, but for me, it definitely came through later, where I started getting like downloads basically for direct communication rather than the external parts. Because on our spiritual path, we're kind of on this journey to learn to trust ourselves and learn to be authentically us, instead of the us that we are kind of led to think we are through growing up and everything that we go through in like our younger impressionable years. So it will try to get to a point where it teaches you to trust yourself, trust your gut, trust your intuition, and lets you be a little bit more in the driver's seat of receiving your information that you need from your guides. It is your life, it is your journey, and you are meant to kind of write it the way that you want to. But sometimes we need external factors because we don't always trust or believe ourselves like we should. And eventually, though, those external things get kind of pulled away to teach us to trust our own intuition. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to learn lessons through our intuition driving us to a decision that leads to an experience that we wouldn't have preferred. I'm not going to say a bad experience, because even the experiences that you don't prefer, they can teach you something. And sometimes it's the only way you're going to learn something. So don't be afraid to follow your intuition, but don't go into it thinking that you're going to get the outcome that your intuition is telling you that you're going to get. You're either going to get what you're wanting, or you're going to get a lesson to prepare you for something better than what you thought you wanted. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it resonated with you. If it didn't, apologies, but this is something that is honestly something that I believe in quite a lot through my own experiences, and I fully believe that our guides try to communicate with every one of us, whether you believe it or not. And anyway, I hope everyone's doing well out there. Love you all, and until next time, bless everyone.